everybody, I'm Katrie. I'm here today to share with you my September reads. I actually had a pretty good reading month. In terms of how many books I read, I feel like I did pretty good. In terms of how much I enjoyed my reading, not the best month, but let's just get into it. This is in no particular order. It's not from like how I read them or how much I liked them or anything. I just brought up the stack over here. So the first one I have on top here is The Little Prince. This is by somebody, Antonio or something. I don't remember the name. Why don't they have the name? Antonio de Saint Exupéry. Probably really butchered that. I apologize. I absolutely love this copy though. I found this copy at a thrift store for like $1 or so. I know, like really good. Just absolutely beautiful. This is a children's classic, and I had never read this growing up at all. So I was very excited to read this. We got this for our daughter, and it was wonderful. So I read it for my 24-hour reading vlog because I only had like a little bit of time left and I knew I couldn't finish like a longer book. This is like right under 100 pages, I believe. Yeah, this one is 92 pages. So yeah, I read this for my last book, which if you guys want to check that out, you know, you can go check that out. I got a video. I don't know if I can figure out how to link it. I'll link it. I'm not very good with the editing part, guys, so but yeah, that was a really sweet book, and there were so many like quotes, like quotable things and things I feel like I've heard before, like quotes I've heard before, and I had no idea it came from The Little Prince. But I'm very glad that I have now read it, so that like I know the story when now reading it to my daughter and stuff like that. So yeah, that was fun. I think I gave it a 4 stars. I should really like look at what I rated things before I come and make these videos, because I always forget, guys. Always forget. Alright guys, in the second book that I read this month, again this is in no particular order, but that is The Winter Garden, and this was by Kristen Hanna. I got this one from my library. I do not own this book personally, but this I had tried to read this book earlier this year and I couldn't do it. I was in a slump anyway and I just couldn't get into it, and like the first half of this book I honestly did not like very much. It was not very interesting to me. I found it boring. The type of conflict that was going on during the story was the kind of conflict that I just hate to read about. I just hate to read certain types of conflicts and things in books. It's hard for me. I can't stand it. And that's kind of what this was filled with. Now, once I got about halfway through though, and we really started to tell this story of these two sisters' mother, it took kind of a historical fiction aspect type of turn within the story, because the story is their mother is Russian, and so it's like a Russian in the time of Stalin and stuff, and I wasn't expecting that. I didn't realize it had some historical aspects to it. I really love historical fiction, so that brought me in more. So it started to get more interesting, and the story was gripping, and so I felt like that's the story within the story was so gripping, and I loved it. And then the end, it ended really well, guys, and it made me cry twice, although it might have just been because it was my week, you know, who knows. I feel like sometimes I cry a lot and then sometimes I don't. It just kind of depends on me that month, that week, you know, who knows. But it did make me cry twice at the end there. I really did like how it ended. I loved the story within the story, but the main story itself, at least the beginning, I felt like there was just, it was very drawn out, and it wasn't holding my attention. It was really hard for me to get into. So I did end up liking it because of the second half of the book, but because it took me so long to get into, I only rated this, I think, a 3.5 stars. Still a little hesitant about Kristen Hanna. I've heard she's a really big author. A lot of people like her, but I don't know. I'm hoping that not all of her books start out so slow, because I don't like having a hard time getting into a book, especially when it's like half of the book. So we'll see. But this one was not too bad. I wasn't completely disappointed, and I was actually happy when it started to pick up and stuff. So I really did like enjoy it. It was a decent book. It was a decently good book. So yeah. All right, and the next book that we have, number 3, is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I keep wanting to say Delilah. Gosh. Delia Owens. This was, and by the way, The Winter Garden and this one and the next one, I'm going to say, it was all on my 12 books of the year recommended by friends challenge that I did like personally within my own like group of acquaintances and stuff. So honestly, like none of these were like, they weren't very like overwhelming at all. They were kind of underwhelming. So this is one of the friend suggested books. Have y'all read this book? Do you guys like this book? Like, what's the big deal with this book? I read like the little excerpt synopsis thing, and I didn't even read like all of it, and I started reading it or whatnot, and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, this is the most basic, simple thing that could happen. So for it to just be very predictable and for me to know everything that's going to happen. And guys, I was right. It was literally my most basic, like, thought in my head of this is like the simplest thing they could do. And that's what happened. And it was very underwhelming for me. There were parts that I felt like were kind of drawn out. It did keep me interested a bit. There were sections where I just wanted to like not read it anymore, but it kept me decently interested. I did love Kaya and Tate's story. That was probably the only thing that shocked me, because I didn't realize there was going to be another guy. Which happens, you know, pretty early on. They meet when they're younger, but yeah, I liked them. I liked them a lot, but nothing really shocked me about this book. Nothing really stood out to me as overly wonderful. There were like a few things and like lines here and there that I was like, oh, that's really pretty, or oh, that's nice and stuff. But there was just nothing that like struck out to me. The writing in and of itself didn't necessarily strike out to me. I understand that she used to be like this was like her first like fiction novel, that normally she wrote like nature stuff, and that showed in some of her writing. Some of it was a little bit overly explicit in the scenery, and like I'm okay with like scenery drawn outs, but when you have like 2 or 3 pages of just talking about the marsh and stuff, and it's not really going anywhere except you're just going to make a whole scene of this, you lose me a little bit, honestly. So I did not love this one. I gave this a solid 3 stars. It wasn't the worst, but it was underwhelming, and I honestly like meh. I think this was an okay book, but I don't think it was anything wonderful, and I don't understand the hype behind it at all. So if you'd like to try to explain to me why this book is so hyped, be my guest in the comments. But wasn't the biggest fan of it. It wasn't awful though, like it was just meh. The next book though, the third and final book that I read for my French challenge this month, that was underwhelming, and I was like disappointed, and out of the 3, it's the one I liked the least. That is An Anonymous Girl by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pacat. I'm not even gonna try. You know, this is okay. So it's by these people. This is An Anonymous Girl. This is a really popular book, and again, I don't know why. And this one, I don't know why for an even stronger reason than Where the Crawdads Sing, because this was not a good book to me at all. From everything I heard about this book, I was really expecting it to be a lot better than this. Again, I went into this book and I read a little bit and I was like, okay, I've got a picture of like, because I don't know, I mean, I like mystery stuff, but I feel like I'm also like not like instantly like, oh, I'm going to figure everything out like 24/7, you know, like things still shock me. I'm not like a egotistic little, oh, I'm the best figure outer, that's not a word, in the world. But like I was just like, okay, it's gonna be something more, right? There's gonna be something more with this, right? There's gonna be something more with this, right? And honestly, there wasn't. There really wasn't. It was just this basic thing that I was like, you realize you could have done a lot more with that plot, right? Like a lot more. And honestly, just where it went in the first place, I was like, this is kind of just predictable. And again, another thing here is that I don't like to read about husbands cheating. I don't like the whole wrap of the story to be, you know, infidelity and cheating and sleeping around, one night stands, blah, 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 because the main character kind of like, you know, she sleeps around all the time and stuff like this. And I'm just like, I don't like to hear about that stuff. That's not interesting to me. It is honestly revolting to me. Like, I don't like it in any sense of the way. So an entire story, psychological thriller that is wrapped around that concept and then doesn't even do anything different is very disappointing to me. I believe I gave this a solid 2 stars, I believe. I don't think I would have given it anything more than 2 stars. But yeah, it did not... I'm a little worried about you if you did like this book. I mean, I don't know. I guess if you just like that stuff, but I don't know. Like, was it just me? Was I the only one who called pretty much the entire, like, book? And who thought the beginning and, like, the concept of the beginning and how it started could have, like, taken so many different turns that would have been a lot more interesting than what they actually did? Like, I felt like it just got more boring as it went on, honestly. I don't know. I was very disappointed with this book. Please tell me I'm not the only one who was disappointed with this book, because, oh, I did not like this book. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about a book that I did like. So that was already 4 books, and, you know, 2 of those I was kind of meh about, and one of them I didn't like, one of them I liked. Let's talk about another one I like. This book surprised me this month, okay? And this was Roaring by Lindsay Duga. This has been on my shelf for I don't know how many years, quite a few years. I don't even remember where I got it from, but I remember the premise originally made me like think, oh, I was more into fantasy at the time, and I like, you know, it's like about a siren, and it also had like a whole like Bureau of Investigation Criminal Minds vibe going on, and I was like, yes, yes, yes. And then I never picked it up. And then I kind of like got out of fantasy a little bit, and it's just been sitting on my shelf forever. And I've just been scared of it. I've been like, this is like, it's not that hunky of a book. It's like 350 pages, but like for some reason I thought it was kind of hunky until like I really like picked it up. But got a nice flop there. Yeah. Anyway, I have been scared of this book, and I don't know why, but I read this, and guys, I really liked it. This was a 4 stars for me this month. This was the first book I actually read this month and finished this month. This was also in my 24-hour reading vlog if you guys want to see some more of my reactions to it. But this really surprised me. I really loved, this is actually a fantasy romance, and I did not realize it was fantasy romance going in. I think that probably helped my likability of it. But yeah, it was good, guys. It was so good. I loved Clay and what's her name? Eris, I think. Eris's like romance, and it was action packed. Like, it was kind of hard to get into at first, and then once I got into it, and it wasn't very far in that I got into it, it was just like one thing after another, like action packed, like back and forth, back and forth. Like the ending did feel a little bit rushed to me because of how action-packed everything was. They kind of slowed it down and then like sped it up for like the very end. It was yeah, it kind of like slowed down and then sped up, and it was just kind of a little bit weird pacing at the end, but I still enjoyed it. I still loved the end. I honestly want more of this couple. I doubt they're gonna give us more. I have no idea if she's even written any more books. But I really liked this, and I haven't heard this ever been like talked about anywhere. So this is about a cult Bureau of Investigation member, but he's like on a specialized section of the Bureau where they like hunt monsters. And then Iris is like one of the last like known sirens alive, who is like not spoken in any way to keep herself hidden forever, and finally like she speaks, and then he's like after her, and it's like this whole, there's so many people who are after her, and there's so much stuff going on, and it's a romance, and it's I did not expect, I don't know, I guess I wasn't expecting to like the whole aspect of the, it's also set in the 1920s, so it's got a historical aspect. 1920s like mobster monsters thing, I thought, you know, like that might, you know, but I think it was pretty well done. I think for the most part it was pretty well done. It was not like a 5-star read in any way. Definitely had its faults, but all in all, it was very enjoyable. I read through it pretty quickly. 4-star read. So, Roaring by Lindsay Duga. If you need another fantasy romance, or you just want to like pick something up that's not super hyped. Next book we got is not a book that I loved very much either. Like I said, this has kind of been like a half and half month. I'm gonna have to count after to see how, actually, if I had more books I liked or more books I didn't like, but that is Waiting for Tom Hanks. This is by Carrie Winfrey. This is also another book, a lot of these books were in my 24-hour reading vlog, but this one, oh my goodness, this one looks so cute. It looks so cute. It looks so innocent. This was not that cute or innocent. I did like the couple, Annie and Drew, okay. You know, I liked their banner, I enjoyed it. But there was a lot of other stuff I don't prefer to read in my reading. I mentioned this in my 24-hour video and before and stuff. There's a lot of like just the dating around culture and stuff like that, and a lot of other side things, and I heard the same complaints from opposite opinions on it. Just felt out of place for the story, it really did. And then the end was insanely rushed and just clumped together and underwhelming, honestly. So not a very good one. I think I might have given this one a 2.5. I can't remember, either a 2 or 2.5. If it was 2.5, it was literally just because of the Annie and Drew banter throughout the earlier remnants of the book, because yeah, they did not do good at the last half. So I would not really suggest this for a good romance. I have other romances I would suggest. Okay, and the next book I have, another one for my 24-hour reading challenge. I feel like I'm just gonna keep saying that. And that's A Separate Peace by John Knowles. This is a historical fiction, coming of age, set in World War II. I believe this is deemed a modern classic. I'm not honestly sure why. I did not like this one very much either. There was nothing about it that I particularly hated or like peeved me to no end, so I believe I gave this one a 2.75 stars because I didn't enjoy it enough to give it a solid 3. Like, oh, I enjoyed reading this. I kind of trudged through some of this one, but there were parts that I enjoyed. I didn't really get this one. I really didn't really get it. The climax kind of happened really early on in the story, and then I just felt like we were in a lull for a lot of it, of not a lot happening, and then there was another one late in the story and nothing pretty much happened after that. It was just a very interesting way to structure a story, and I felt like there wasn't enough in between, and I don't know, it just felt weird to me. It gave me a lot of similar vibes of Looking for Alaska by John Green, though. The whole boarding school aspect and everything, tragedy, you know, during whatever, except for obviously like wartime and stuff like that. But I feel like John Green did a lot better of a job, honestly, in his story and telling of like what he was trying to convey. I'm not even sure what John Knowles was trying to convey here. Maybe I'm just dumb. I don't know. But I just did not like this story. Like I got it, but I didn't like get it. It didn't click for me in any way. There were some very, you know, very pretty things here and some things I liked, and I liked Phineas as a character, but again, it just kind of, it didn't give me a whole lot, and I just didn't enjoy myself very much reading it. I kind of trudged through this one, so I only gave it a 2.75, but it is a pretty cover though. It's got that going for it. All right, and then I think this was the second book that I read, and it was another like 4 stars. Actually, I think this one was 4.5 stars that I gave. I absolutely adored this one. I can't believe I never read this growing up. So many of my friends have read this growing up, and this is Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rowles. Oh my goodness, you guys, I loved the story. Like, This was a beautiful, beautiful story. I am, first off, absolutely in love with Wilson Rowell's, making sure I said his name right, with his writing. So beautifully written, especially for a children's literature. I believe it's classic or a modern classic. I'm not sure if it's quite reached 100 years yet, but I think that's what they deem to be a classic, right? It has to reach 100 years, and if it hasn't yet, they deem it a modern. Am I correct on that? I think so. You can if you know, let me know. But I loved this book. His imagery, his writing, it was beautiful. It was simplistic, but like still very knowledgeable and intelligent, like you could tell. And I loved it. It was also really cool reading about coon hunting in the Ozark Mountains. That was like such a cool, and it was just so cool to read about coon hunting with hound dogs in the Ozark Mountains. Like, it's such a simplistic story and just like a natural, you know, everyday living story, and I absolutely loved it. It was so good, guys. If you haven't read it, have to read this. I knew going into this, you know, this is a dog story. All dog stories are sad, you know, like it seems like at last the old Yeller, like, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna cry. This book really surprised me. I cried like 3 or 4 times. It was much more sad than I thought it was gonna be. I was like ready for it, but I wasn't ready for it to be that sad. So fair warning, bring your tissues. And I also I was not expecting such graphic imagery of some really like gory stuff in here for a children's book. So fair warning for your children, because it says 8 to 12 on this. I'm not sure, unless my child was really mature at 8, if I would quite let them read it at 8, although they might not understand all of the actual graphic images. They might not understand the words, but yeah, just fair warning. Probably check it out by yourself so that you can kind of determine when your kid is ready enough for it. But gosh, it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. This was probably my highest rated book of the month at 4.5 stars. I have 2 other 4 stars, but this one just had something extra. I really, really enjoyed it. And thank you so much to my friend Libby for like convincing me to pick this up and grab it, because she loved it when she was a kid. I've had some other friends too who read it when they were a kid and was like, oh, you haven't read that? I'm like, no. But yeah, thank you, Libs, for making me pick that up, because such a heartfelt story. Our last book is one that I just finished, and that is Reimagine, What the World Would Look Like If God Got His Way by Brent Crow. This was not what I was expecting it to be, because I mean the premise is what the world would look like if God got his way. I kind of thought it was just going to be like this whole like imagine like if type of thing. I wasn't quite sure if I was into that. It kind of took a bit of a different turn though. It was more of like putting the imagination on you, and how our imagination comes from God, and like he's an imaginative God, and how we can use that imagination to like, you know, like, okay, what if everything was going according to God's laws? Like what is God command of us? How can we help to make that happen in our world? So I really loved the application of like our daily lives in this, and just like how we should be using our imagination to like further God's kingdom and to make this world a better place. Because while we know that we can't like fix everything, obviously, like that's only going to be fixed when, you know, Jesus comes back, new earth, new heaven. But we can, you know, push for progress, and we should be pushing for progress towards, you know, God's will and the good of everyone, really. And I really love that. I like have highlights, and I put like little sticky notes because they have like little questions all throughout this book. So I did enjoy it a lot. There was a lot of things in here, and there was quite a few other like books and people that I hadn't heard of that was also like mentioned in this book that I kind of like got written down for, ooh, I want to check that out and stuff. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I believe I gave this one a 4 stars. This was the last one I finished up this month, and so yeah. All right, guys, let's see here. Let's see how many we got. We got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. We read 9 books this month. I only picked out 6, and I read 9. So hey, and There is one book I did not read on here that was on my TBR though, and that was partially because I was doing the 24-hour challenge, because I picked two like Christian theology books, and I only got to one of them because I take slower and take my time and make notes and stuff like that reading those, so I didn't do that for the 24-hour challenge. But these are all my books that I read. I'm pretty happy with it. Like 9 books is pretty good for a month, especially since I did not read for like the first full week of the month because I was busy doing family things, vacationing. But yeah, so let's see here. We got 2, 3, 4. So about 4 books that I really, really liked. And then I'd say about 3 that I really didn't like, and 2 that I was okay. That like I enjoyed okay, but I didn't love them, but I didn't hate them. So that's about, yeah, half-ish, I guess, you know. That's not too bad. I just, like I said, I read the bad ones kind of back to back. Oh my goodness, I was like fighting so hard to not go into a reading slump. I was like, don't go into a reading slump, don't go into a reading slump. Oh gosh, guys. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with me during this video and being interested in what I read this month. Like, that's very sweet and cool of you. Let me know what you read this month or what you're excited to read for next month. I already posted my October TBR, so if you want to know what I'm going to be attempting to read this next month, you can hop on over there and watch that one. I hope you guys have a lovely day, and we'll get to read lots and lots of books this upcoming month. Bye, guys.